Yeah. Yeah.
All right, shifting gears, one of the things that this movie is most famous or infamous for is setting a world record for the number of automobiles crashed in a major motion picture. Whose inspiration was it to go so over the top?
Danny?
I think I might speak to that. We were all huge fans of Bullitt, first of all. And at that time at Universal, Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds, they were doing the Smokey and the Bandit movies. And the stunt science of spinning cars, putting them off pipe ramps, flipping them with mortars, that was something that was around the lot when I was there on 1941. And so I was steeped in the science of the stunt world. And when I went to write the movie, and of course John, having done stunts before and knowing the science himself, he signed off on the idea that these guys, they're running from the cops, they should have the right equipment to do so, and let's use all of the stunt science that was available to really top these other guys who were doing these pictures before us. I think that's part of it.
Can I add something real quick?
Sure.
One of the funny moments for me, and it wasn't funny at the time, but I don't know if Danny, you remember this, but we did a rap one day, and you said, hey, we're going to go to dinner tonight. If you want to go to dinner, I'll pick you up at the lobby about 7 o'clock. And I said, well, hey, that's cool. So we come down to the lobby, and I'm waiting on Danny, and here he comes in a Bluesmobile. And I went, hey, how cool is this, you know? And I said, hey, how'd you get this? He said, oh, it's not, they let me get it. It's not. So what I didn't know when I got in the back seat that he was going to be rehearsing for some of those car wrecks. And here we are flying through the city of Chicago at 80 miles an hour, you know, and I'm looking for cops and everything else.
Well, Danny Elwood, there is a lot of Danny in Elwood. Danny's a real lead-foot motorhead. He likes to drive.
He loves to drive.
He likes to drive. You did some of the driving in that, none of the really dangerous stuff. But it's a tribute to Danny. I mean, Danny really is, you know, the Bluesmobile. Gee, you have a lot of like vehicles. What's it called in Ghostbusters? The ambulance thing.
Yeah, well, it was a '59 Cadillac, but
well, he's very
but
specific
the
about these
Bluesmobile
things.
Was a character. You made it a character, John. You gave it human properties. You gave it properties that a normal automobile doesn't have. So
Danny
you really made it into a character.
Danny felt that to make this car, to explain, have some sort of explanation for the magic things this car was doing. There's a scene on this DVD, you have an extended version that has a scene that was cut out of the theatrical version, which you won't see tonight, but if you buy the DVD. But the scene is during the Peter Gunn theme, and you see where Elwood keeps the Bluesmobile. Describe the scene, Danny.
Well, it's a generator for the electric train in Chicago, a generating house, and the Bluesmobile was parked in the generating house, giving it a certain power that
he felt that this would explain why the Bluesmobile could do the things it did. And I said, Danny, it's a movie. It's movie physics. We just show it, and people accept it.
It's a magic car.
It's a magic car. I have to, very quickly, I can't see anybody, but there are other people from the movie here. Stephen Bishop, the charming trooper, is here. Can you wave? Yeah. There you go. The great star of Jonathan Demme and Russ Meyer movies. We're privileged to have Charles Napier here of the Good Old Boys. And I think, is George Folsey here? Are you here, George? He's way in the back. George Folsey, who cut the Blues Brothers, the editor of the Blues Brothers. So,
okay, so getting back to the mass destruction, what came first, the mall or the script for the idea for the mall?
The mall came about on a location hunt. We were scouting, and in Harvey, Illinois, we found this abandoned mall, and we went in there, and you know, I must say, I'll take pride of this, Blues Brothers' first movie to trash a mall. So we just thought, what an opportunity. And we called Tom and Sean and Lou Wasserman and said, give us $1 million more, we'll destroy the mall. And they said, of course.
Exactly right.
And that leads me to a question for Thom from Richard Pomap, who's watching in Chicago, from Chicago, the home of the Blues Brothers. He's watching at the Lincolnshire Stadium 20 in Lincolnshire. Was there ever a point, because this budget kept kind of snowballing, that Universal considered saying, John, we need to talk?
Our summer was an interesting summer from a lot of perspectives. One problem I had was that the chairman of my company was trying to strangle me with his hands, and his office was really close to mine, so I would try to avoid him a lot. The budget on Blues Brothers did escalate a little. The flip side of that is that the New York Times had mounted a campaign to prove that Hollywood was out of control. It was the summer of Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate, 1941, Apocalypse Now, Star Trek and the Blues Brothers. 5 movies in 2 years that cost more than $24 million, which was the magic number that bankrupted Fox with Cleopatra.
Exactly right. And so between the New York Times and the chairman of MCA, it was a very interesting summer. John didn't help much because John understood that we were taking an enormous amount of heat at the studio. And so in the dailies, just after clappers or just before or trims, he would always do stuff like, hey, Thom, how's it going? I spent another $1 million today. No. Everything's fine. And so,
that's not
you know,
true.
It's absolutely true. And so.
What is true is Ned Tannen, who was his boss, that we were shooting in Chicago, and then after a long time shooting in Chicago, we came back to Los Angeles to finish the studio, to work with Mr. Brown on the set and finish stuff on the back lot. And so Ned, who had been screaming at Thom and Sean Daniel, producer Bob Weiss, he wants to see me. So I go, okay. And they're all like, you know, and did you ever see the Errand Boy with Jerry Lewis? There's a thing in that where the boss of the mailroom screams at him so much that his eyebrows are like plastered. Okay? That's how they look. They would come out with their hair like this. So I go into Ned's office with great trepidation, and Ned couldn't have been more charming. Everything going okay? Yeah, Ned. You need anything? No. Dailies look great. Thanks. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Mr. Tannen. I go outside. These 3 are like, well? I said, he said it was fine. And then I'm sure you went in and got reamed.
Yeah, that's right. But that's the job.
Can I add a real quick thing?
Sure.
I'm flying, I think, back from Chicago with Bob, with Robert K. Weiss.
Bob Weiss, who's in
so,
Vancouver producing Scary Movie 4, which is why he's not here.
So I just said, it really wasn't any of my business, but I was just very curious because I knew we had been doing a lot with all those car crashes and all that sort of stuff. And I said, Bob, I said, what is the budget on this film? And he kind of looked at me and he said, well, Steve, there really isn't one.
Well, there wasn't one. To be fair, there really wasn't a budget till we were well into production. And when the budget was announced, I remember Bob saying, we've spent more than that. But most of it went to Dan Aykroyd.
Of course.
That's right.
Henry.
And he still has it.
Oh,
Yeah, and it still has it.
And he still has it.
But one thing people are forgetting, 1979 was a scary year in terms of the economy, and the rate of inflation was about 13%. And so you'd have executives visiting who would explain that the rate of inflation then was 13%, which meant that if it didn't change in 5.5 years, everything would cost twice as much as it costs then. And the only answer I could give to this executive, I don't even know who it was, yes, but this movie isn't going to take 5.5 years. And he said, it seems like it.
Who is that?
I don't know, someone from the studio.
People would come from Universal and talk to anyone with a swastika.
Well,
There we go. Okay.
mutual attraction.
We can't talk about the Blues Brothers without talking about John Belushi. What's everybody's? We're on the home stretch here, but we have to have everybody's favorite John Belushi story.
James.
I was at the, you got me right on it. What's the name of this disco? It was Studio 54.
Studio 54.
I was at Studio 54 doing a show, and John was sitting there watching my moves and everything, and he just was spellbound. So when I came off, I said, what's happening, John? He said, I'm just thinking, how are you going to make it through them churches with a move like that? I said, well, John, I'm not going to try to make it through the church. He said, well, believe me, in a couple of years from now, people are going to be coming to you from all over. And that came about, like he said, God bless his soul. He could see a lot further than I could, but I tell you, I love him, and I love Dan, I love the whole cast because they were great. just like my dad, because he said, do this, not do this, do this. And I was so glad for you, I'm telling you. Because without you, I would have been to crawl through the hole.
Right, right. I made James Brown everything he is today.
Yeah. Thank you. Now you can see the light.
Steve, what's your favorite John Belushi story?
You were great. Oh, I appreciate it.
Well, there's many. Some I can tell, some I can't tell. But one of them, we were all met at the hotel and jumped in the van, and we were going to do the choreograph for the jailhouse rock scene when we were all dancing and doing these steps and all that. So we get down to the sound stage and we all pile out of the van and we're coming in and we're all talking and it's early in the morning and everybody's up and going like that. And Danny meets us at the door and he goes, shh, shh, shh. And we go, what? And he said, it's asleep. And so John had been out all night knowing we wasn't going to shoot that day, just rehearse. So he had been out partying that night and he was taking a little nap.
Dan, how about you? What's your favorite John Belushi story?
Well, the night we shot in Harvey, Illinois, it was a night shoot. We were there for several nights, and it was just shortly after lunch, about 2 in the morning, and we were looking for John. Couldn't find him anywhere on the set, trailers, craft service, anywhere, production trailer, nowhere. And I saw a path going through the abandoned parking lot of the mall there, and I believe, Gwynn, you were with me. My friend Ron Gwynn is here, who was with me through a lot of the Blues Brothers. And we walked to a house that had a light on in this suburban area around Harvey, Illinois. It was the only house that had the light on. And just on a whim, went up to the front door and knocked on the door. And the guy comes to the door. He says, yes. And I said, I'm with a film production crew over here. We're looking for one of our actors. Oh, John Belushi? Yeah, he's here. He raided my fridge. He's lying on my couch. And he'd come into the house and taken the guy's food and ate standing up and drank standing, and he was crashed out completely asleep on the couch. You remember that, John, don't you?
What did you call Johnny? Tell him what you called Belushi.
America's greatest, America's guest.
America's guest. There you go. Right. Danny
You
also
could go
said,
anywhere.
He said a wonderful thing. I watched the bonus stuff on this DVD, in which you are all very well spoken, by the way. And Danny said a wonderful thing about John. I don't know if you remember, but he said that John was a very, very good man and a very naughty boy.
That's right.
Jim
That's right.
Belushi said,
How'd it go?
and you were there when he said, this always impressed me, he said, my brother, he said, is the only guy I know that had 3,000 close friends. That's pretty cool.
Okay, what's everybody up to next? We're almost out of time, but I want to give everybody an opportunity to talk about what you're up to. John, what's coming up next for you?
I don't know. I just finished a thing called, I forgot. Oh, a thing called Dear Woman for Masters of Horror, which will be on Showtime, which I'm joined by people like John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, Dario Argento, Takeshi Miike, a bunch of very interesting directors. And I hope to make another musical. I'm trying now. We got the script, and now comes the hard part, which is getting the money to do Bat Boy, which was a musical that was off Broadway and in the London West End. It's kind of an opera, kind of a cross between Beauty and the Beast and West Side Story. I don't know. It's a deeply weird movie, but that's what I'm doing.
Mr. Brown is appearing here in Southern California. What else is coming up for you?
He just did.
I just finished the Greek, but most of all, I wanted people to know that we just finished doing Live 8 in Edinburgh, had the largest audience ever before, 5.2 billion households. Thank you. A lot of great people were there, special promoter, my good friend Goff, and then Bono was there. A lot of great people, but it was a very important situation because of the fact that we were trying to feed the people that were victims of poverty, being poverty-stricken, like the places in Africa, and as well as the tsunami was there as well. So I've been doing that and trying to be a goodwill ambassador. I'm on my way to China now to make them enjoy the funk.
Yeah.
How many days a year are you on the road?
Oh, but actually years when I was a lot young, I used to be on the road 335 days a year.
But now?
Oh, about 80, 85.
Listen, if you get a chance, this is still one of the great live shows. You got to see it.
Absolutely.
Get up!
Steve, what are you up to?
There's a new album out that I was fortunate enough to produce. Shamika Copeland, 25-year-old singer of Johnny Copeland, daughter of Johnny Copeland.
It's great.
Thank you, thank you. I know you just interviewed her on your radio show. And
Yes, sir.
hopefully
It's
you'll
hot,
be
hot, hot.
seeing me from time to time. I'm going to do a couple of TV shows, hopefully with her in a couple of shows, and that's fun. Some other stuff that we're doing, I played on a Frank Black session. There's an album out called Honeycomb that's getting unbelievable reviews, and we're going in the first week of September to cut another album on him. And then the original Blues Brothers band are headed for Bangkok about the middle of September, and that'll be interesting. I've never been to Thailand, so I'm looking forward to that. And other than that, nothing.
They'll be funky when you get there.
Chasing my 4-year-old around.
We're gonna make so much funky, be funk left over for you.
Goodwill Ambassador, that's what you said, right?
Henry.
Well, very briefly, the story I remember, and then I'll tell you quickly, about John Belushi was one day, it was just an exterior, I think, of the prison, and there was a little bunker kind of house across the street that they were using to change wardrobe or something. And he was standing with John. There was like about 6 minutes to kill. And he turned to the director, to John Landis, and he said, John, you know, the Pope's coming to town. Because the Pope was visiting Chicago. This was like the first week of October 1979. And John said, yes, I know. He said, don't you think we could get him to do a cameo in the picture? Very briefly, if you tune in to Boston Legal, I'll be on a couple of back-to-back episodes in October.
Great.
That's it. That's it.
And Tom?
We start shooting a picture called West Texas Children's Story in New Mexico, of all places, starting on the 17th of October. So that's what's up. Yeah.
I want to thank everyone, and Dan, of course.
Dan Aykroyd.
Can't forget about Dan.
Yeah. What are you doing, Danny? You're
I'm a
opening for the Rolling
semi-retired
Stones.
handicapped industrialist.
Danny, who are the Blues Brothers opening for?
Well, first of all, we opened our latest House of Blues in Atlantic City. Before that, Cleveland and San Diego. We have 10 venues open across the states. We're the third largest concert business in the world, based upon the ethos of the Blues Brothers, and nobody has a bad time at a House of Blues. I've got Patron Tequila, which I'm bringing into Canada. And
Danny, when do you
basically, that's about it.
This guy's opening for the Rolling Stones in a couple of weeks. I think that's impressive.
Danny. Danny. What
Yes.
about the movie you're supposed to shoot in Louisiana, the one we talked about? Are you going to continue with that project?
I've got to talk to Mr. Belushi about it. You know, any opportunity that I could dream up to work with you, sir, I'm there.
Well, I love you very, very much.
With that, ladies
Same
and
here.
gentlemen, I want to thank our panel.
I have to
You have to okay.
very
Very
quickly,
quickly.
I have to say that everybody's here because of the passion of John Belushi and one of the great North Americans, Dan Aykroyd.
That's
Yay.
right.
I want to thank our guests. I want to thank our guests, Mr. John Landis, Mr. James Brown, Steve Cropper, Henry Gibson, Thom Mount. I want to thank our friends at Universal Studios Home Entertainment and National Cinemedia for making tonight possible. Don't forget the DVD for the Blues Brothers comes out tomorrow. Yep. Go get it in stores. It has both the original theatrical version and the extended edition. So a lot of great bonus material. And we look forward to being back with you at a Regal Entertainment Center, a National Cinemedia affiliate, very, very soon for Hollywood's Master Storytellers. My name is Gordon Meyer. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
How do you think? You done? Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.